Hi, I'm Okana Aster, and oh god, I'm actually doing this. It's my first time making a fear video, and it's a bit stressful, especially when all I've done on his channel these past few months are look where she posted memes. Well, anyway, I want to tell you about a theory that came to me after I watched this flashback at the end of chapter 3, specifically when we see the graveyard. Notice anything? Here, let me help you. Shira's grave is missing. Shira is Sharon's sister, who became part of Lemon Bread in her tale. And her grave not being there means that she wasn't dead back when Suzy arrived in her hometown, that her death is somewhat recent. And this discovery led me to a pretty big rabbit hole, so don't touch that dial, because it's a graveyard theory. This probably seems crazy, a graveyard theory. Yes, I called it like that just for this joke. I originally wanted to call it the Graves theory. So, Shira's death being recent has to mean something for Deltarune's story, right? If Shira wasn't gonna be relevant at all in Deltarune, why would Toby specifically remove that grave for the flashback when he could just leave it? It's not like it would change anything to the story, unless it would because Shira will be relevant to the story of Deltarune. And since she's dead, that can only mean one thing. She will be brought back as a Darkener in a future chapter, just like Gerson was. But in which Dark World? Well, while nothing tells us that there will be only one Dark World per chapter, I can think of three, one per remaining chapter. First is obviously the Flower King, the chapter 5 Dark World that was seized by Gerson. Second is the Shelter. We know there's a Dark World in there. And third, I believe, is the infamous Ice Palace Dark World that's been teased in the sweepstakes and in the chapter 3 mental minigame. Gerson tells us that in chapter 3 we got a glimpse of a lost land. I believe the Ice Palace in the mental minigame to be that glimpse, and we will visit the real Ice Palace Dark World in the future. It will be either Ices, or, more likely, the Holy Dimension. It's literally a giant Christmas themed house. What else is more likely to become an Ice Palace in the Dark World? Now, in which of these will we meet Shira? To me, it seems obvious that it's in the Shelter Dark World. Shira is a Shiren, a water monster, and I believe their shelter will be the culmination of all the water references that we see in the Dark Worlds. An OST called Ocean.ogg plays when we first enter the closed Dark World, for example. During Gaster's Gonna Make a sequence, the background is an edited image of the ocean called image_depths, which we can also see in the fountains and in the prophecy of chapter 4. And of course, the shelter makes Gaster noises, slowed down by 666% the number of Gaster, meaning that the shelter specifically must be tied to Gaster and these depths. Jevel also mentioned these depths if you beat him with violence. Hell's roar bubbles from the depths. Hell, the devil, Gaster, 666, the ocean, the depths. It all seemed to tie back to the bunker, and the Darker Shara would have its place in such a heavily water-themed Dark World. Not to mention Lemon Bread in her tale says, "Welcome to my special hell," which could be completely unrelated, but is still interesting to point out. I also believe Darkner Shara to be the origin of the song that comes from the sea, which Onion hears. The shelter is underground, and probably spreads under all of Hometown. I believe it has an access at least to Under the Lake, and what Onion hears is Shara singing from within the Dark World. She's a singer after all. She's described as such on her gravestone, the item she's released with the microphone, and of course she's Shiren. Onion even says that it's a new song. And well, if it's a song Shira used to sing when she was alive, then yeah, it isn't a new song. So this is it? We'll meet the Darkner based on Shira in the Shelter Dark World? That's the theory? No, that's not all. Because then I thought, if we met Gerson, and we will meet Shira, then will we meet Mler in Crystal too? Let's start with Mler. In her tale, he's one of the monsters that formed the Endogeny Amalgamate, and I won't beat around the bush. The Mler Darkner is friend. When Rasa explains what the Dark Worlds are at the beginning of chapter 3, we see Friend's face on the silhouette of Endogeny, which ties Mler and Friend together. But Friend is a cat! Yes, it is. And in another tale, there are cat silhouettes between Endogene's legs, which even gain cat faces when Endogeny is parable. These cat silhouettes are still very visible in Deltarune, still between the legs of the Endogeny silhouette during Ra's explanation. I also want to talk about the game that inspired Cat Betters, a real video game named Cats with a Z. The thing is, this game is not alone. It also had a counterpart named Dogs with a Z, which is the same thing but with, well, dogs. But in that case, where's Dog Betters in Deltarune? Well, I believe Mler/Friend we both the dogs and the cats. Just like the Pets series gave future entries both dogs and cats, in a game very creatively named Dogs and Cats. We will meet Friend/Mler in the Flower King Dark World, since Gerson describes it as the field of pink and gold, pink and yellow, just like Friend's eyes. Now, there's only one Dead Lightner and one Dark World left. Crystal, Snowy's mother, and the Ice Palace. And oh, look! It corresponds! Ice Theme Dark World and Ice Theme Monster. Not only that, but we know that Dragon Blazers mirrors Deltarune, as it's based on Lord of the Hammer, which is based on the prophecy. In the hospital, we see Noelle playing it and fighting a boss called Silver Drake, the ice boss of the Ice Palace. I believe Crystal to be Silver Drake, since she is ice themed and her species is Snow Drake. Now okay, we figured where each of them would be, but what would be their role? Well, I believe that they'll be the secret bosses, just like Gerson. We know Asgore will be the main boss for chapter 5, since his prophecy... wrong one. Since his prophecy is labeled boss 3 in the files, while Queen's prophecy is boss 1, and Dena's prophecy is boss 2. Well, I saw some people theorize that the final boss will be a flower Asgore is holding on that panel. Well, the Darkner based on it, the flower itself, but not Asgore. And it would be a very smart way for Toby to put the boss right under our noses, but have us look past it so that we get surprised in chapter 5. Not to mention the potential for flowy parallels. And Mler can't be the flower since his dust is spread on the bone, not the flower. So, this means Mler can be the final boss regardless, and the most likely option is that he's the secret boss. Which makes a lot of sense with how mysterious Friend has been this whole time, and how Gerson was also the secret boss. Following this logic, I believe Shower and Crystal will also be the secret bosses of the Shelter and the Ice Palace Dark Worlds, respectively. But there's one more question that remains. We know how Gerson's hammer ended up in the church, but how will the other 3 items end up with the Flower King, the Shelter, and the Holy Mansion, when they're supposed to still be buried in the graveyard? At first, I didn't have an answer, but then as I started editing this video, I saw this in front of Crystal's grave. It's been here since chapter 1, and it's like some kind of dinging implement. What's in it isn't clear, but considering the colors, it seems to be the type of flowers that we see on the sides of the graveyard. Which means that whoever is in charge of taking care of the graveyard and its flowers must be the one who took the items. I went around the hometown trying to figure out who it is, and then it dawned on me. It's Asgore. Who else could possibly be planting and taking care of the flowers in the graveyard other than the local flower shop owner? And if he is the one taking care of those flowers, then him hanging around the graveyard with a shovel doesn't look suspicious. He's just planting more flowers, at least that's probably what the inhabitants of hometown think. While anyone else hanging around the graveyard with a shovel would probably look suspicious to the inhabitants of hometown. So, Asgore is the best candidate for the one who did that. And on top of that, Asgore obviously has access to the Flower King, where he could put Mler's bone. He also has access to the Holy Mansion, where he could put Crystal's gemstone. And for the Shelter and Shara's microphone, well, I think that Asgore is secretly working against Carol and the Knight. As to why I think so and how they let him access the Shelter, and why he would go grave robbing if he's working against them and not with them, let me explain. Asgore has a corkboard and lots of documents in the back of the Flower King. Carol also has one of those in her room, and if they were working together, why not put all the corkboards and documents in the Holy Mansion where they will be able to share and organize all the info they have more easily? I think Asgore makes his own research, separately from and even against Carol. And if it does have a black shard like we think, it could be the name of Carol's katana, but it could very well just be an actual black shard that he has, we just don't know yet. Then it means that he must have fought against and defeated a knight, who Carol clearly works with. Also, she fired him from the police and seemed to look down on him with the way she talks to him, to see him as nothing more than a fool. She doesn't seem very fond of him. I think that Carol is forcing Asgore to work with her and the knight, just like she seems to be doing with Chris, guilt-tripping Asgore because of his presumed involvement in Death's disappearance. Though, when alone, Asgore implies that this isn't what happened, and he wants to prove it. But she thinks he's responsible, that's why she fired him from police. Also, we know Carol is financially supporting Asgore, and she could be threatening to stop doing so if he doesn't go along with her plans. So, Carol is manipulating Asgore? No, Asgore is manipulating Carol. I believe that he puts himself in financial trouble by selling his flowers and makes himself dependent on Carol's money on purpose. That way, she thinks that she holds him tightly with her manipulation, that she's in control. Not seeing Asgore as a threat and giving me access to her room and to the shelter where he can continue his research against her and the knight in her bag. That also explains why he's so non-confrontational with Carol. He wants to keep this image of a silly man who isn't a threat to her authority, who doesn't question things and does what he's told, so that she doesn't figure out his true intentions. And since Asgore is pretending to be on her side, he could have followed her order to dig up the items and put them in the Flower King, the old dimension, and the shelter as she asked. And she would let him access the shelter since she's wary of him. That's how and why he would have put Shara's microphone in there, as well as the other items in their respective locations. Heck, we thought it was Alvin who took up Gerson's hammer, but maybe it was Asgore too, digging it up and putting it in the church as part of the knight's plan to curse the Shadow Crystal. Alvin is possibly also an accomplice knight in his plan, but may not be truly on board. Explaining the doubts he expresses about the morality of Gerson's hammer being digged up, without him being the one who did so. In that case, the knight will also try to give Mler, Shara, and Crystal Shadow Crystals. If he didn't already do so with Shara, since the shelter of Darkworld has been seemingly open for a while already. This is why Asgore was ordered to give these items and to put them in these locations. And the knight wanting to give Shadow Crystals to his characters, just like it did with Gerson, strengthens my theory that they will be the secret bosses. So, final summary of the theory. For the Night Carol's plan, Asgore, who pretends to be on their side in order to gather information on them, dug up Gerson, Crystal, Mler, and Shira's items and put them in the church, without being an accomplice in keeping the hammer in his office, the Holy Dimension, the Flower King, and the shelter respectively. Gerson was the secret boss of the church, Mler is friend and will be a secret boss of the Flower King. Shira will be a secret boss of the shelter, and is the one who sings the song that comes from the sea. And finally, Crystal will be in the Ice Palace, the Holy Dimension, and is the silver drake that appears in Dragon Blazers. What do you think? Do you agree with this theory? Leave a comment and give me your opinion. And if you want more theories from me, I do have an idea about exploring ideas of sadism and masochism in Undertale, and how they may relate to the characters of Chris, Susie, and Noelle. So tell me if you'd be interested in seeing that. That's all from me. You can touch that dial now. Just be gentle.